The footage looped. A Terran cruiser, hull scarred, drove itself into an Allied warship without deceleration. Charles Varen watched the explosion bloom, his pale features reflecting the orange glow.
Perfect. This single clip will be the centerpiece of our case. The galaxy will see humanity's true nature.
His chief analyst, Lyra Vell, entered the office, a data drive in her hand.
Prosecutor Varen, the compilation is complete. 18,000 hours of Terran combat operations curated as you requested.
Excellent. Every brutal moment, every violation of civilized protocol. They won't be able to argue away their own savagery.
She hesitated, the data drive cold in her palm. Something in the footage patterns had unsettled her.
But she said nothing. Charles was not in a mood for ambiguity.
Schedule the closed screening for the Allied witness officers. We'll harden them for the trial. After they see this, they'll be begging to testify.
The trial date was set for 3 standard months from now, the galaxy's first prosecution of an entire species. The summons to appear before the Galactic Court reached Terran Ambassador David Chen before the day ended. He watched the chosen clip, the ramming, and his expression did not change. Charles Varen stood at his office window, the city spires behind him as the human ambassador was announced. David Chen entered without hesitation, his expression as calm as if he were visiting a colleague.
Ambassador Chen, your species faces annihilation-level charges. I trust you understand the gravity.
I do. On behalf of Earth, I accept the case file. We request a full copy of all evidence.
You want the footage? Now? The compilation was meant for trial preparation, not defense.
A fair trial requires disclosure. Your compilation will serve as an asset.
The data transfer initiated immediately. Streams of combat footage flowed into the Terran's secure network.
Charles watched the transfer progress, an inexplicable unease pricking at his certainty.
We will see you at trial, prosecutor. Thank you for your transparency.
Alone again, Charles stared at the blank screen. The human had asked for nothing else. No defense, no objection, just the evidence. Later, in the analysis wing, Charles found Lyra Vell already dissecting the footage in her lab. She had frozen a clip of human Marines clearing a corridor during a boarding operation. Her expression was tight.
Prosecutor, look. Their fire teams never lose cohesion. They always strike from angles our allies leave unguarded.
Reckless aggression, nothing more. Their victories are statistical accidents, not doctrine.
The pattern was not random. She had run the simulations. The outcomes were identical every time.
But Charles had already moved on. The screening schedule demanded attention, not analytical nuances.
Finalize the witness list. 200 senior officers. They will see humanity for what it is.
She wanted to object, to show him the data, but the words stuck in her throat.
The invitations were dispatched immediately. Across the Alliance, 200 high-ranking officers received their summons. That evening, Charles Varen retired to his quarters. The trial dates circled on his calendar. He did not sleep. He did not need to sleep. The next morning, the Galactic Court publicly announced the trial of Earth. Charles Varen stood before a wall of reporters.
The evidence will show that humanity's warfare is a crime against civilization itself. Justice will be served.
He retreated to his office, where Lyra had uploaded the screening sequence. The footage order was final.
The ramming, the boarding, the fleet engagements, each chosen for maximum shock. They will see the horror and demand retribution.
An hour later, he entered the screening amphitheater. 200 seats descended toward the colossal holographic screen.
Ensure the sound systems are calibrated for maximum impact. I want them to feel the explosions in their bones.
The technicians nodded, making final adjustments. Outside, the first shuttle bearing Allied officers had begun its docking sequence.
Disgust, outrage, the perfect fuel for his case. He could already hear their testimonies.
A holographic countdown appeared, 3 hours to screening. The prosecution had waited 3 years for this day. 200 of the galaxy's most decorated officers would soon fill these seats. Charles Varen was certain they would never forget what they were about to see. The lights dimmed. 200 officers fell silent as Charles Varen stepped onto the presentation platform.
You are about to witness humanity's true nature. The screen will show their most authentic interactions.
He pressed a control. The first clip began. A human Marine squad breaching a corridor. Flashbangs detonated. Human weapons fired in precise bursts. Targets dropped one by one. No wasted shots. General Tikar leaned forward in his seat, his scarred face unreadable. He studied the screen with the intensity of a tactician. Scattered gasps broke the silence as the firefight continued. Alien bodies dropped in perfect sequence, each shot deliberate.
They are appalled, exactly as predicted. The outrage will build into a crescendo for the trial.
From the control booth, Lyra observed the audience. Several officers were taking rapid notes, their expressions analytical.
Admiral Varen's jaw tightened. She exchanged a fleeting glance with the officer beside her, then looked back at the screen, unblinking. The clip ended with a human Marine stepping over a fallen defender. The amphitheater was silent, the kind of silence that could mean anything. Charles advanced to the next clip without comment. The screen flickered to a starfield and 3 Allied destroyers facing a single human frigate. The timer in the corner of the footage started counting. The frigate did not wait. It twisted through their formation like a predator, each energy burst catching a vital system. The first destroyer erupted at 18 seconds. General Tikar's claws dug into his armrest. His head tilted, following the frigate's impossible vectors. The second ship died at 31 seconds, its reactor breached by a shot from behind an asteroid that had not been there a moment before. Admiral Varen whispered something to her aide, her voice too low to carry, but her eyes never left the screen. The third destroyer attempted to flee. The frigate pursued with the patience of a predator that knew its prey had no escape. At 42 seconds, the last ship dissolved into a cloud of debris. The clip ended. The amphitheater was not silent, it was dead.
They hadn't gasped. They hadn't moved. The horror was complete.
In the booth, Lyra felt a chill. The officers were not horrified. They were memorizing.
Lyra pressed her palm against the cold observation glass. Below, an officer in the second row was actually taking notes on a datapad.
They are not repulsed. They are studying. She felt the case slipping sideways, the evidence turning into something else.
Charles, oblivious, announced the next clip with a flourish, a flanking maneuver during the Trident campaign. The screen filled with human soldiers moving in a flawless arc, using every scrap of cover, every fold in the terrain. Admiral Varen watched in silence, then leaned to the aide beside her, her whisper barely audible.
Flawless.
The word didn't carry to Charles on the podium, but Lyra caught it on the booth's audio feed, clear as a gunshot.
They are seeing a doctrine they cannot match. This is not a trial, it's a demonstration of superiority.
Charles smiled to himself and advanced to the next clip, still believing the heavy silence was moral horror. The room's atmosphere had thickened into a web of tactical appreciation, a tension he mistook for condemnation. Charles called up the next clip, one he had personally selected. It showed a Terran corvette fleeing from an Allied patrol. To him, it looked like cowardice. The corvette staggered, flames licking from its hull. Then, in an instant, it pivoted and unleashed a point-blank broadside that vaporized its pursuers.
That was not a mistake. That maneuver is a textbook kill box. Every ship charged into a pre-sighted kill zone.
General, with respect, this is clearly a panicked retreat. They fled, got lucky, and fired in desperation.
They exposed their stern to invite pursuit. Then they pivoted into a kill zone they had already calculated. No luck.
A murmur passed through the amphitheater. Officers nodded, Exchanging glances of grim comprehension, the room was no longer silent.
Even if it was intentional, it violates engagement protocols. Feigned retreat to lure an enemy is considered a war crime.
They never raised a surrender flag, they simply withdrew to a more advantageous position. That is strategy, not crime.
Charles faltered. The room had shifted. These were no longer silent witnesses, but evaluating judges, and they were judging him. The first open challenge had come from his own witness. The screening was no longer a prosecution. It was a debate Charles was losing. Charles, desperate to regain control, queued up his final devastating evidence, a ground assault during the Varden colony siege. The clip was meant to showcase human disregard for life. The screen lit with chaos. A human platoon, 30 soldiers encircled by a battalion of Allied troops. Impossible odds. They contracted into a defensive ring, wounded dragged to the center, fire teams rotating with mechanical precision. The attackers fell like wheat. Not a single human fell. Every wound treated, every shot counted. The encircling force fled, leaving 100 dead. The clip ended with a human medic closing a fallen soldier's eyes, not their own, but an enemy. Silence reigned. Admiral Varen rose. Her chair scraped back loudly. Every head turned. She spoke into the dead air.
I have commanded fleets for 30 years. I have never seen such coordination. I would refuse to engage that unit under any circumstances.
General Takar nodded heavily, no longer debating. Around them, officers were shaken, some covering mouths, others staring at the floor.
They are not criminals. They are predators who have civilized their instincts, and I have just shown the galaxy their teeth.
He fumbled for the controls and killed the feed. The amphitheater fell into darkness. Without a word, Charles turned and left the stage. The screening was over. The damage was done. Charles sat alone in his dark office, the door sealed against intrusion. He had called up the compilation, and the ramming clip was playing again, its fire reflecting on his pale face.
Prosecutor Varen, we need to talk.
Not now, Lyra. I have to salvage something from this disaster.
You misunderstand. The footage is not what we thought. It is not evidence of war crimes.
She called up her own analysis on a side screen. Diagrams of the kill box, the flanking arc, the defensive ring. Each pattern glowed with tactical precision.
It is a training manual. Every supposed violation is a textbook example of perfect execution. The ramming, the retreat, the defense.
He stared at the patterns, his certainty crumbling. The ramming was not madness. It was calculated to disable without wasting ammunition. They compiled their own greatest hits for us to show the galaxy. Every clip is a demonstration of their superiority.
The enormity settled over him like a shroud. He had not built a case. He had built humanity a monument to their own supremacy.
The trial must proceed, but he no longer knew what he was prosecuting. He was trapped between duty and a truth that would undo him.
The morning after the screening, a priority transmission broke the silence. 3 generals had requested immediate reassignment away from Terran front.
Cowards. They watch a few minutes of footage and lose their nerve. This is exactly why we must proceed.
Prosecutor, it is not only them. I have received quiet inquiries from several officers. They are terrified not of human brutality, but of their competence.
Ridiculous. They are soldiers, not scholars. They should be preparing for war, not running from it.
A new alert chimed. The High Prosecutor's Office demanded an immediate briefing on the screening's fallout.
The case is imploding before it reaches the court. Not from human arguments, but from their own damned footage. I will explain to them. This footage is still damning. The generals who fled are simply weak-willed.
They are not weak, Prosecutor. They are the first to understand. This footage is not an indictment. It is a warning they cannot ignore.
Charles grabbed his robe and swept toward the door. The air felt heavier than it should, charged with an unspent reckoning. As he walked away, the datapad flashed with another defection notice. The Alliance was cracking, and the trial hadn't even started. On his way to the High Prosecutor, Charles was intercepted in a neutral corridor. David Chen stood waiting, arms loose at his sides.
Prosecutor Varon, I hear your screening was educational.
He had not expected the human here, much less with such calm. Your officers seem to appreciate our military arts. I trust you're not here to gloat.
Gloat? No. I merely came to thank you for compiling such a thorough record of our finest moments.
You knew this would happen. You orchestrated it.
I merely accepted your evidence. You chose the footage, prosecutor. I only asked for a copy.
The calm in his voice was infuriating and unassailable.
David nodded politely and continued down the corridor, leaving Charles with the bitter taste of an accusation that had no target. Charles realized he had been outmaneuvered, but he could not trace the move. The human had given him nothing but the truth. Charles entered the High Prosecutor's chamber. The walls seemed to close in, the air heavy with unspoken disappointment. A voice, cold and final, informed him that 7 admirals had submitted immediate retirement requests. They would not serve against the humans.
This is a tactical panic. The footage was meant to shock, not to terrify. Give me time to recontextualize it.
The High Prosecutor's reply was ice. The footage is not your weapon anymore, Varon. It is theirs. Withdraw the case.
Withdraw. The word felt like a physical blow. 3 years of work, reduced to a monument to human supremacy. I cannot withdraw without certainty. Give me 24 hours. Let me review the footage one last time.
The silence stretched. Then occurred approval. One day, use it well. Charles left the chamber feeling hollow. The weight of the next day pressed on his shoulders like a physical force.
24 hours to find a flaw, a mistake, a crime, anything to salvage the prosecution's purpose.
He sealed his office door, the compilation waiting on his desk. He would watch it all again, and this time he would find his case or admit defeat. He started the compilation on fast forward. Hours of combat screamed past in streaks of fire and blood, faster than the eye could follow, but the mind could absorb the shape.
He watched the pattern emerge. No wasted movement, no panic, every action a calculated response. It was not chaos, it was choreography.
A montage of clips replayed, the ramming, the kill box, the defensive ring. Each one a masterpiece of applied violence, each one beautiful in its precision.
This was not aggression born of rage. It was the product of a species that had turned war into a science and had arrived at perfection through catastrophe.
He paused on the medic closing the enemy's eyes. A single act of compassion in an hour of devastation, and he finally understood.
They are not barbarians. They are survivors who refined combat until victory became inevitable. The footage was never an indictment. It was a monument.
He saw his own reflection in the dark screen, the prosecutor who had built the case of the century. It was nothing but a testament to human resilience.
I cannot prosecute this. I cannot even stand against it. The only ethical act left to me is withdrawal, to admit that humanity cannot be judged, only feared.
He stood slowly, every bone heavy with the weight of the decision. He would call David Chen in the morning and offer a settlement before the trial could begin. The decision was made. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humanity could not be accused, only feared and admired, all because of the footage he had so carefully compiled. The morning light slanted through his windows when Charles finally made the call. His voice was steadier than he felt.
Ambassador Chen, the Galactic Court has decided to offer a non-trial settlement. The case against Earth is withdrawn.
I accept on behalf of Earth. We appreciate the wisdom of this decision.
Then, with the same calm David had always shown, he made one simple request.
We would also like a complete copy of the compilation. The Terran Military Academy could make excellent use of it.
The words landed like a physical blow. He had known this was coming, but still, the irony seared. I will arrange the transfer immediately.
And with that, the case of the century dissolved into a data file, handed over to humanity as a tool for their own glorification. Charles ended the call and stared at the blank screen. The footage that was meant to destroy humanity would now teach their next generation. The galaxy's greatest evidence of human crimes had become the galaxy's greatest recruitment tool. A small ceremony was hastily arranged in a neutral diplomatic chamber. Charles stood stiffly, the data drive heavy in his hand.
Thank you for this, prosecutor. Your work will inspire thousands.
Inspire. The word hollowed him out. He had meant to terrify, not inspire. I trust it will be used appropriately.
Oh, we will. The Academy has already prepared a full curriculum around your compilation.
The transfer completed with a soft chime. The data streamed away into Terran custody, never to return.
3 years of work, now a recruiting poster. He had become humanity's greatest advertiser by accident.
The official press release came an hour later. The Terran Military Academy thanked the Galactic Court for the generous educational material. The wording was polite and pointed. No one in the galaxy missed the subtext. Charles Varen sat alone in the dark, the weight of his unintended legacy pressing down on him. The footage was now human history, told by humanity's defeated enemies. At the Terran Military Academy, a vast hall of cadets sat in silence as the compilation began. The first clip showed the frigate's impossible 42-second slaughter. An instructor's voice cut through the dark. Note the rotation of fire teams. No gap longer than 0.4 seconds. On screen, the human platoon contracted into a defensive ring, wounded dragged to the center. The cadets leaned forward, mesmerized not by violence, but by perfection. They replayed the kill box maneuver. A cadet whispered, "It's a roadmap." By the end of the first day, the compilation had been broken into 47 individual tactical modules, each with accompanying commentary from Terran strategists. Recruitment posters began to appear across human space. A frozen frame of the medic closing an enemy's eyes, with words beneath, "Compassion in service, precision in action." The tagline from the most viewed ads simply read, "They tried to shame us. They showed the galaxy our best." Recruitment stations saw lines stretching through the doors. Men and women signed up with a gleam of pride fed by enemy footage. In the galactic net, the compilation became the most traded data file in history. Species who had never met humanity studied the footage as a deterrent. And deep in the Terran Academy, the next generation of human warriors was already dissecting the footage of their elders, learning what perfection looked like from the aliens who had tried to use it against them. A standard year later, Charles Varen sat in his dark office, a newsfeed playing the recruitment numbers. The official report stated, Terran enlistment rose 340% in the past cycle, driven by combat analysis materials. A graph on screen showed enlistment spiking beyond all projections, the curve steepening.
He had meant to cripple them. Instead, his work had birthed a new generation of soldiers.
The feed cut to clips from his compilation, the frigate's kill box, the defensive ring formation.
Every frame a recruitment poster, every tactic a lesson he had inadvertently provided.
The anchor's voice praised the unprecedented instructional value of the Galactic Court's material.
He was not a villain or a fool. He was worse, irrelevant.
He killed the feed. The room fell into darkness, lit only by the city lights below. The case was over, but his mistake had already armed the future. The Terran Academy's grand auditorium was packed with cadets. Ambassador David Shen stood before them, the enemy compilation playing on the colossal screen. He waited as the medic's compassion played out, a human hand closing an alien's eyes, then began.
Our enemies tried to shame us. They collected our most brutal moments, thinking the galaxy would recoil. Instead, they showed everyone what we already knew, that we are not animals. They showed the galaxy our best, and the galaxy took notice.
Behind him, the screen cycled through the kill box. the defensive ring, the ramming.
Now, be worthy of that legacy. Study these tactics, improve them, make them yours. Carry this knowledge forward, and let no one forget what humanity is capable of.
The cadets rose to their feet, a roar of pride filling the chamber, echoing off the walls. Humanity's harshest enemies had become its greatest recruiters. On the screen, the ramming froze, a flawed monument to a perfect accident. Far away in his darkened office, Charles Varon sat motionless. The distant roar of the Terran cadets could not reach this place.
His career was over. His name had become a cautionary tale in galactic court history.
The screens around him were dead. No footage played. No case files glowed. Just silence.
He had set out to shame a species. Instead, he had armed them with a mirror of their own perfection.
The galactic court had quietly retired him. No charges, no trial, just a formal dismissal with a note of regret.
The file on his desk contained the formal verdict of his peers. Gross misjudgment of evidence, resulting in catastrophic propaganda.
He did not argue. The evidence was too complete. His own compilation, the very footage he had gathered, now taught humanity's youth.
He would never practice law again. His name was a byword for self-inflicted defeat.
He stood, walked to the window. The city below glowed, indifferent to his ruin. And then he turned back to the empty room, where the ghost of the compilation still flickered in his memory. The silence was absolute, and in the void between stars, a Terran cruiser slipped from an interstellar dust storm. Its hull was scarred by recent combat, but its lines were unbroken. Blue engines burned with cold, steady purpose. The trial never happened. The Galactic Court quietly sealed the records. The evidence against humanity had been too convincing to use. The prosecutor's compilation now resided in the Terran Academy's core servers, its clips studied by millions of new recruits. A monument to human resilience, built by accident by those who sought to condemn it. The cruiser moved on, indifferent to the irony, carrying its scars like medals. Behind it, in a dark office on a distant station, a broken prosecutor sat in silence. But the ship did not look back. Humanity's future was already written in the fires of its past, and its enemies had done the writing. On every Terran world, recruitment posters still glowed, frozen images from the compilation. The medic closing an enemy's eyes, the frigate's kill box, the defensive ring, all iconic now. At the Academy, a new class of cadets was sworn in beneath those very images. They would train with the footage for years, learning from the perfection their enemies had unintentionally catalogued. In a distant station, Charles Varon's office remained dark and sealed. His chair had not been replaced. His name was a byword for self-defeat. But the compilation had outgrown him. It spread beyond human space, a ghost lesson plan for the unprepared. A Terran cruiser, scarred but unbroken, burned through the interstellar dark. The ship did not look back, carrying its story into the future. In trying to condemn humanity, the galaxy created its greatest advocates, and that was the most damning evidence of all.